Hey, 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 Nicole Roberts Jones here, and welcome to another episode of the Meaningful Work podcast, a time we connect to help you understand how you can live a life and have a career full of meaning and fulfillment. Now, our guest today, her career is where she didn't expect to go. But it really is a place that she has found meaning and has given meaning to several of her clients. And her name is Dominique Charles. Now, Dominique is a master urban gardener who builds and consults on gardens and has been featured in Well Plus Good, Domino, MarthaStewart.com, Discovery Plus, The Weather Channel, The Washington Post, and most recently, The Today Show. So she kind of knows what she's talking about, right? Now, listen, her joy and passion for gardening is evident in every action, and you'll see it soon. And she's on a mission to encourage new gardeners like me and you, because listen, I don't have a green thumb, y'all, so I can't wait to hear what she's going to say. She's encouraging all of us to dive in and begin growing our own food, flowers, really anything that you desire. With a little creativity and curiosity, Dominique hopes new gardeners will realize that they too have a green thumb. So, y'all, help me welcome Miss Dominique Charles. Hey.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So excited to have this conversation. Now, listen, we met at, no, let me just fully disclose, she is my sorority sister, and we met at an event. And no, we're not going to get into all of that because if you in another sorority, you can listen to this too. But yeah, she got
We love them all. We love them all.
We love them all. So listen, we're at an event and you start talking about gardening and you just lit up. So tell us, how did you get into this whole journey of gardening?
Wow. So it's twofold. So my grandparents were farmers and literally the cutest little farmers ever, but they have a farm in had a farm in Greensburg, Louisiana. We have the property now, but they've since passed away. And so I just always grew up in a farm, a green space. Every summer, that's where we'd go. You go to the country, basically. When I love to say I became a city girl. So as I, got older and whatnot, I didn't really want to go out there as much. So the interaction there kind of like, obviously I saw my grandparents, but I wasn't pressed to ride tractors and stuff.
Right.
So anyway, I was able to purchase a home in 2013. And a girlfriend of mine comes over and I have a really long yard. And she's like, "Oh, are you going to build a garden?" And I was like, "Girl, no, I'm trying to have cookouts and brunch and, all that stuff." And she's like, "Well, if you could grow a garden, what would you grow?" And so I just started talking about different things that I would grow. And when I had my housewarming, she's like having people help her. And I'm like, I did not register for anything that big that you should need help with, right? And so what she'd done was she basically interviewed me unknowingly. And she built me these smaller, like the largest terracotta pots you can imagine. She built me gardens and multiple types of gardens. And so it was just so neat. So I was, growing them and sharing my stuff on social media. And I realized I was kind of good at it because it does take a skill set. And so as I started to, share those things, people were like, "You should make this a business." And, everybody wants to make everything a business, but everything doesn't need to be a business. But I did. I opted for it. I jumped out there. I created the webpage, and my first website was very kind of, I would say, elementary. I did it. That's not my that's not my field, right? I set the webpage. I set up like an Instagram, a Facebook, all these posts and whatnot. And I pressed the button and I got on a flight, turned off the phone. And when I got off the flight, it had blown up. And I wouldn't say it went viral, but, people were really interested. And so I just continued to share the things I was growing and subsequently got some clients. And I'll say it really picked up in 2020 when, we were home. And people were like, I can't get to the store. How do I do these things? And so that's where the business really skyrocketed. And then, by the grace of God, I was able to be on Martha Stewart, on Discovery Plus, on her show. And things have just gone crazy since then.
So good. So good. So let's go back for a second.
Okay.
I love how you said, you're from Nolens, right? Just so y'all know. She said Greensboro, wherever she said, y'all don't realize that's right outside a suburb of New Orleans, right? So and I'm saying it like that on purpose because I have family from Houston, not far from New Orleans. But anyway, right. But that's how you're supposed to say it. So, so what's interesting is you grew up farming and yet you overlooked it. You overlooked this whole thing you were doing. So what do you, now that you have merged the two, right? This new passion as a city girl, right? She lives in DC, y'all. So those of you that are thinking this don't apply to me because I live in a city, she lives in a city that you would think that you
Mhm.
plant a plant. Okay. So how do you see your roots now coming full circle for you, your background and all the things that you learned with your grandparents?
So wholeheartedly, I see, like, so my grandmother was alive when I first started pots and pans,
Mm,
and she was absolutely tickled by the whole thing. She just thought it was so funny. Like, I can't believe kind of came back there. But I think the biggest thing is, I have a very particular diet in the sense of my dad's from the West Indies. He's from an island called Dominica, which is why my name is Dominique. As a New Orleanian, we eat very particular things. So the things that I typically eat would be like lots of tomato based things, lots of okra, onions, tomatoes, and some lots of rice from both sides, right? But like, so those are the type of things that I find myself growing, lots of bell peppers, hot peppers, things like that. So culturally, I find that I can grow the things that I grew up eating, that I enjoy the most, that I tend to cook with, right? So that's the biggest part. I think it's a lot of what I grow and the why behind it. But
mm,
yeah, I think that's the first thing, if anything,
that's
is
so
I
good.
enjoy to bring my culture with me wherever I grow.
So good. And so what do you think when I think about gardening? First of all, I would never think I would want to garden, and obviously you didn't think so either for a while, right?
Mhm.
So what if someone's on the fence and listening to you now and you want to tell them why, all the whys around gardening, what would you tell them?
So I think the big why is to grow your own. I think we can all do it. And I know a lot of people are apprehensive and they're like, oh, I have a brown thumb. And I was like, girl, no, you don't. I was like, if anything, you have it might be turquoise. It might not be green. But, I think a lot of it really comes down to discipline. And
Mm,
we think that there is a skill set, but the skill set starts with discipline of like, okay, I need to water things with this much water at this time every day. And many of us go to the gym, we work out, and we have that level of discipline, but we don't necessarily have it in other places. And if you start there in just a space of like, this is discipline, you'll figure it out.
mm.
So I think a lot of people just get lost in that part. I can't remember what else.
No, just listen, because I remember when I first moved into my first house, I was so excited, y'all. Okay, I'm out myself because I probably have a turquoise thumb. I'm not gonna say it's brown. I'm gonna say it's turquoise. So I was so excited. Had my first house. I was like, okay, I'm gonna plant flowers. Okay, now let me just preface what I'm going to say with the fact that I am from LA, city girl through and through. And in LA, there's green spaces, but you don't have to do a lot to maintain the green space in LA. Okay, so this house is in Wisconsin. Okay, we're going to moment of silence for that. Because you can imagine this LA girl had no business trying to plant something in Wisconsin. I'm clueless and I'm in a whole nother, area, cultivation and everything. So I go
Mhm.
find these beautiful pink flowers. I'm so excited. My favorite color which is it was similar to this color right here, right? Plumish magenta. So excited. And I tell my husband, the minute I see a worm, I'm out. When we dig, you be right here because when I see a worm, I'm out. So I'm already wrong up front. But anyway, so I dig up the dirt. I plant the flowers in the dirt just like the woman told me at the store. And I'm like, yes, it's beautiful. 2 days later, dead. What I didn't ask her was how to maintain. And I think
Mhm.
that's a difference. And that's what you really spoke to. I over watered my flowers. I was thinking, ooh, I want them to grow. And yeah, I was doing too much. So I think many of us, we don't take the time to fully understand. And
Mhm.
even as I'm saying this, it makes me think of when I was little, we had this lemon tree in our backyard, and everybody would come over our house to get lemons. And just your ability to be able to have fruit and vegetables. And my mother had a whole garden, by the way. We had
Mhm.
greens, we had tomatoes. So tell us, now that you are gardening and growing your own food, are there any favorite recipes that you've begin to design now that you have your own
So I
supply?
like spicy foods. So there's it's just a difference. I don't like hot food. I like spicy food. I need it to have the heat, but also have flavor. Some people just want the heat. No. So I like making hot sauces. I like
Mm,
making hot sauce a lot. I made some really nice, and then on my West Indian side, we would call it like a pepper sauce. But I
mm,
really enjoy making pepper sauces. That is like a highlight for me. And then people, when they have it, they're like, "Oh, where'd you get this?" And I love to share those things. So I definitely like making hot sauces. I'm trying to think. I like to make gumbo. So gumbo is
mm,
a labor of love. And so I'll take my okra, and the okra doesn't always grow like I have all this okra at one time. Sometimes it's kind of piecemeal. So I like to take my okra and I'll cut it up as I get it, and I put it in a freezer bag and keep going like that until I have enough to make okra, to use it for my gumbo. But yeah, I would definitely say pepper sauces are our favorite. Okra. I wouldn't one. Oh my God, the summer of 2020, I made so many chimichurris. I love chimichurri, like with my
I love
whole
me
heart.
too.
Oh
Mm.
yes, I did that with all the different herbs that I was growing. So it was always a little different, and I love that. But if you can tell, I like savory food a lot. I do like sweets too, but the savories, they got
Yeah,
me.
because you can't beat when it's fresh. When it's fresh
Yeah,
and it's really, really good, you can't beat that. So I'm gonna have to come over, even if I gotta buy some
yeah.
chimichurri. But anyway, so let me focus because I'll start talking about me, and this is not about me. So if somebody was listening, right, what would you tell them they need to do to get started? Like, what tips would you give them to get started designing their own garden?
So the first thing I definitely ask all my gardeners is, what do you like to eat? Because I think I know, like in my first years, I was growing cilantro a lot, right?
Mm,
I actually don't like cilantro. I do like cilantro, but I don't like cilantro enough to grow it because it's cheaper to buy it at the store than the cost of me growing it. So,
mm,
like my things that I have to grow every year are hands down tomatoes, some type of hot pepper, and I really enjoy watermelons. Like the watermelons from my garden are just phenomenal.
mm,
So I ask people, that's the first question I start with. What do you like to eat? Like during the spring and summer months, what can you not do without? And then we go from there. And I think once we've kind of established what it is that that person likes to eat, what they can't do without, then we try to see, well, what grows in this area? Because I have gardeners who are in Arizona. I have gardeners here. I can sell all over the country. I mean, God willing, one day over the world, right? But trying to figure out what grows in different people's areas, because I can't tell somebody, some people grow lemons in our area in DC, but a lot of them have greenhouses and this, that, and the third. So I can't tell you in your regular backyard garden, yeah, you can grow lemons. That's not a fair assessment. But what I can tell you is you can grow pears, you can grow apples, you can grow peaches, right? So kind of putting people in the right space. Now, some people, again, some are doing that, doing lemons, but you don't find a ton of people who are doing it and doing it successfully. So I
mm.
just try to meet the person where they are, but establish from the beginning, what can you not do without? And then from there, we move on to what can grow well seasonably here or in
Mm.
your local area.
You know what's so interesting? Just watching you as you answer these questions, you're just lighting up, and I love it. Which means to me, you're doing the thing that God created you to do. This is the space that you've always been meant to be in. So, do you feel like
I
that? Do you
do.
feel? Yeah.
I do. It's so funny because I think I was having a conversation with someone. We were talking about a potential marketing, promotional thing for me to do, and they wanted me to do something. And I was just kind of like talking through it, and then I was like, "Okay, but is it possible we could switch it up some?" And they're like, "Yeah. What are you thinking?" And I felt a physical weight being lifted off of me, and just like I just started talking about the things that I love. And like, I really do love this stuff. Now, the
Mhm.
hard part sometimes is capturing it because I'll get outside and I can spend hours outside. But then I guess like for everything you do now, you're a content creator too. And so the things that I think are just normal is just people like, no, you could have made content out of that. And I'm like, oh, who knew, right?
Right.
But ultimately, I really have a passion for this. I really enjoy growing my things. I enjoy helping new gardeners. And even
Mm.
I have a gardener who I work with who is just the funniest lady ever, like truly funny. She is joyful. And she's not really good at the garden, right? But she just likes to have it there. And she likes to have her kids to go outside and to be able to see how things are growing. And she's like, we're gonna keep trying. We're gonna keep trying. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Like, and her husband is actually the real gardener in this situation, but she just loves it. And her joy, it's infectious, right? Because she loves doing this. I love doing this. And the kids are involved. It's just a really fun experience to see people, even if they get one tomato, they just get so excited about that one tomato. So I'm so thankful that this is something that I'm good at, and I've been given the opportunity to share it with so many others.
And I love how you said, you'll be outside gardening for hours and you're not thinking about content. And you and I are similar in that. And so just to share a tidbit, and yes, I know y'all are listening, but how this podcast came to be is I'm having conversations with people. I coach people around taking the thing they love and creating a career or, creating a business around it. And I'm talking to one of my clients, and it just dropped in my spirit one day. God, this should be a podcast. People should overhear these
Mhm.
conversations, right? And so I don't ever think, I used to get in trouble because I used to have a whole marketing team. I had to let them go because they yelled at me too much, but they were right. So, and I'm saying that because I'm not thinking about taking a picture, creating a video. I'm busy in the moment, fulfilling, serving the people, doing my thing, enjoying what I'm doing. I'm not thinking of capturing it. And that's the hardest part. And so I'm with you. I'm learning with you. This podcast is me, having these great conversations and now having expanded beyond my typical just client conversations to
Mhm.
other arenas. So the thing that I've started trying to do is just turning my camera on and just letting it be there, and I'll just edit a
Ooh.
piece out of it or not, or it's not even a camera, it's my phone. So if that helps you or anybody else that's listening, because when you're in your passion, if people don't see it and you can't articulate what it is, you're not going to get a job doing it or you're not creating a business around it. That's the hardest, I think that one of the hardest things about doing meaningful work and really understanding how to align your purpose with your paycheck.
Definitely. I've also experienced some imposter syndrome and things like that where I felt like, well, am I doing the right thing? Weight loss, weight gain, and then you're looking at the videos and you're kind of like, "Ooh." Like I was scared to post something recently. My sister was like, "Girl," I'm like, "Girl, I know."
Like, listen, I have a client that's an event planner and she didn't want to post anything because she gained like 20 pounds. I said, girl, are you teaching weight loss? She said, no. I said, then
Hello.
post a picture. Nobody cares what you weigh. You just make sure the event looks fabulous. You're showing the tape. That's what they care about, right? But
Well,
I
it was
get
the
it.
opposite for me. I had lost weight, so my
Mm,
sister was like, "Girl, did you?" I was like, "I didn't realize it." So she was
mm.
like, "Okay." So I was like, "I only got a few more older videos to post, but I gotta post them because they exist, right?" So you know,
And I'm sure it's all good content. So if tell us now, I had started this story, y'all, and then I had a senior moment and didn't ask the question that I meant to ask when I started talking about my challenge flowers. So now I'm gonna come back to that question, y'all. Had a senior moment. So if someone finds themselves in a challenge around gardening, what advice would you give them?
oh well, first of all, they could hire me. I'm always gonna pull up
Hello.
me. Um, no, I mean, I definitely think you can. I, I have mixed feelings about the internet sometimes. But the best part is everything is at your fingertips and there's so many
Yeah.
good resources. I mean, my Instagram, Plots and Pans is great. There's some other people who I really follow who I love. Her name is Farm Unique. Her name is also Dominique. Love her. I think, those are great people. Black Girls with Gardens. There's a bunch of people. And some people are, my favorite, Tam in the Garden, but people will
Mm.
entertain will interact with you, right? And so like at this point I'm on text conversations outside of just the Urban Gardener, she's in DC as well. But people will engage, right? And they'll say, oh, you're doing X, Y, and Z, and I think that's really helpful. Like, so don't be afraid. Like, I think you also ask questions, but understand that everybody is running a business. So figure out how many questions you feel like would be appropriate if somebody asked you and this was your business. So I
Mm.
tend to ask people maybe one question, maybe one or two in one question, but I'm not going to do a ton of follow-ups. And then if you feel like you have a lot of questions for someone, then ask them, well, what would be the rate if if I hired you? Because I think sometimes we lose those professional courtesies
Yeah.
with the internet, right? But more than anything, I think if you reach out, people love this because also it gives them content, like because they're like, oh, somebody asked me X, Y, and Z. But again, I think if you ask in a question that is reasonable
Mhm.
and without a ton of follow-ups, people will just answer it.
Right. And so for those of you that are watching us here on YouTube, you've seen that I put up her blog, myplotsandpans.com. Again, it's my plots and pans, and I'll put it in the show notes as well.com. So tell them, obviously, this is a place they can go, resources. You can ask questions. You can join her mailing list. You can follow her. All her socials are there on her blog. But is there anything else that they can find on your blog?
So I think more than anything, I'll say some of the stories are a little bit older, just because I started to pivot a little bit more into like really using essentially when you think about Instagram, it's considered micro blogging, and so that was really helpful. And so I don't have a lot of old stuff there or a lot of new stuff there, but what you can do is if you want to book me for a garden consultation, or whether it's in person or virtual, I also host workshops. The workshops are by far my favorite to do. But we have one for adults and we have one for kids. You can book a workshop there. And I'm trying to think what else, but yeah, definitely you can connect with me there and we can figure out what it is that you want to do and how I can help you get aligned with that. If I can help you get aligned, right? We'll have the conversation one way or another. And I always point people in the right or in the direction I feel like is best, especially if I can't help you. So I want you to be helped, but I can't do it all.
Right. So go check it out. My Plots. I love that. My Plots and Pans. I love that.com. So let's end with this. Where do you see gardening going? Like, what's the future of gardening?
Ooh, I like this question. Okay, so I don't see gardening ending. I see a lot of people, I think, I'm trying to answer this in a non-DC space, but a lot of people feel like where we stand as a country is a little chaotic. So I just talked to a friend the other day who said he and his fiance are probably going to move to like Montana. And I was like, oh. And he was like, yeah, we want a rancher and we'll, probably start a small farm there. And I was like, okay. So I think that a lot of people are starting to see where they need to be a little bit more self-sufficient. For me personally, a big part of gardening is community. And I think that we can't all do it, right? I can grow a lot of things, but my soil might not be set to grow a lot of things. So, or your soil may not be set. So I always like to tell people, in the space of community, you can always talk to a neighbor. You can grow 8 different varieties of tomatoes. Your neighbor can grow 8 different varieties of lettuce. And the neighbor over here can grow onions. And the neighbor over here can grow peppers. And y'all can have a fully sustainable relationship with each other if everybody kind of picks something that they think they could be good at and can keep growing, right? And share amongst each other. You can barter. It doesn't have to be like I'm selling my tomatoes, but hey, girl, I got some tomatoes for you. Or hey, sir, can I get some of your onions or whatever the case may be, and grow at different things throughout the year. And I think that'll be really helpful. But I think gardening is going to continue to grow. I think people are going to continue to want, currently eggs are about averaging $5. In some places they're over 10. So, you may have to change some things in your diet, but ultimately I think that we can continue gardening. I think it will be helpful to figure out what grows well in your area, how to store food, because now we're thinking about, people who are like homesteading, right? And then you can store onions for a long time. You can store, potatoes for a long time. But then I use my freezer and I also have a deep freezer. So in there, I have tomatoes from the garden. I have peaches that I got, things like that. I'm not confident in canning. So I'm not going to tell everybody go can, but if you are confident in canning, right, you can start to can some of those things and live like how our foremothers and forefathers lived. So I think that's the thing is like, you can garden, you can live sustainably and for a long time if you save these things and you store them in an appropriate way. But again, my favorite part of this is community and just sharing those things. I have a neighbor. One day I was walking my puppy and she's like, runs out the door. And I'm like, girl, what is happening? And she's like, are you the lady with the pear tree? And I kind of had to laugh because I was like, I'm the lady with the pear tree. But I was like, yes, ma'am, I'm the lady with the pear tree. She's like, I love pears. Do you happen to have any extra? And I was like, I do. I'll bring some by. So after I walked, but my dog is Butter. His name is Butter. So after I walked Butter, I came back home and I, picked some pears for her. I had some tomatoes. I had some herbs. I remember some hot peppers I put in the bag and then I left them on her front door. But, that's the little things. That doesn't cost me anything to share with my neighbor who obviously has been looking over to see what's going on in my yard. So I love those moments. I love to share with my community. And so I hope everybody else has that same feeling when they're growing things as well.
Love it. Well, thank you for sharing with us today. Thank you for letting us see inside of your passion. And I'm just excited about what's to come because I know you're just beginning. This is just only the beginning for you, right?
It is. I mean, my goal and my hope and prayer is that I could have a show. I've mapped this show out in my head. The first time, oh goodness, every time I talk about this, I get emotional. But like, I think, oh gosh, it's coming. But I think representation is important. I think seeing people who look like us is important. And I remember just leaving today's show actually, and this young boy, he stopped me. He was like, "That was her," and then the lady was like, "It was her. And he was like, you look like me. And I'm like, I do. And, but, to see
Mm.
somebody who is, black, who's plus size, who's brown skin, who has natural hair, like, I'm unapologetic about who I am. And I
Yeah.
want to be that. But I didn't see a ton of people who look like me on TV. And I think, especially in the gardening space, I think we've seen plus size women on television, but they're often in the kitchen. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I want to show that we are even more diverse. And, before you get to the kitchen, because we are pots and pans, right? Okay, so
Come
I
on.
still cook. Be clear. But, to show the other side of it. And I think it's just so important. So I think not just a physical being, but I'm every one of us. I have a full-time job in addition to gardening. And sometimes that makes it hard to, like, again, get out there, shoot content and so on and so forth. But I do it all and I do a lot. Sometimes I'm very tired and sometimes I'm not. But I believe that I could host my own show about gardening in communities and share that with everyone.
Well, I
So if
believe
you
you
know
can
somebody,
too. Hello. Yeah, look, from your mouth to God's ears, right?
that's it.
So with that, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing such great insight. And I'm looking forward to following your journey, girl.
Thank you.
so
Bye.
with that, so with that said, y'all, that's this episode of the Meaningful Work podcast. I'm always going to ask you to do two things. One, share what value you got out of today's episode. Of course, go and follow our phenomenal guest, Dominique Charles. And again, it's myplotsandpans.com. And then share this episode because, again, I'm not necessarily asking to grow my reach. Of course, yes, I want to do that too. But really, my motive behind the ask is because this insight may again be the very thing somebody in your community, in your family, on your social media page needs. All right. So, with that, I'll see you next time for a new episode.